Hi everyone, welcome back to NLTI's official YouTube channel for the 3-year LLB program. So MHCET is around the corner. The exam will be held on April 1st and 2nd in multiple slots. So we are here today with another video in which we will be going over the previous year papers for the MHCET. This will give us some insights into what can be the expected themes and the questions for MHCET 2026. One thing to note is that the MHCET previous year papers are not publicly available because it's a computer-based test. So our projections, our themes and our analysis based on the memory of students who appeared for these previous year papers and who helped us reframe or rewrite the questions that were asked in the paper. So stay tuned. We will be discussing in a comprehensive fashion all previous year papers of MHCET to help us guide our preparation for MHCET 2026. Now, first things first, let's discuss what MHCET law actually tests, what type of paper is it, what is the pattern of the paper, and what is the structure of the paper like. So the total number of questions are 120, total marks 120, that means 1 mark for every correct answer. The duration of the exam is 2 hours, 120 minutes. The question type is objective MCQs, just like NLSAT Part A or your CLAT exam. There is no subjectivity introduced in the paper, and the marking scheme is like that there is +1 for every correct answer and there is no negative marking. This only means one thing, कि हमें सारे के सारे questions attempt करने हैं. We do not have to leave any question unattempted, because even if you attempt a question and it is wrong, there is no negative marking to it. Medium of examination English and Marathi. MHCET law में बहुत ज़्यादा emphasis रहता है on Maharashtra and Maharashtra candidates. If you see, over 80 to 85% of the seats are directly reserved for Maharashtra candidates. So even though the number of seats are very limited for outside Maharashtra candidates, two colleges, especially GLC and ILS, present themselves as great options and as great backup plans for your NLSAT examination, or those of you who are targeting the National Law School Bangalore. So if you are among the very few people who sincerely study for this exam, you have a great shot at cracking the top 2 colleges under this exam, that is ILS Pune and GLC Bombay. Mode, it's a computer-based online test. There is no OMR sheet. It's a computer-based test. You will go to a center, you will sit in front of a computer screen and mark your answers on the computer screen itself. Now, what is the syllabus of this paper? So the MHCET law 3-year LLB paper is divided as follows. Rely on this information because a lot of times if you search it up on Google, you will come across the pattern and the syllabus and the structure of the 5-year MHCET law paper. But the pattern and the structure differ between the 5-year paper and the 3-year paper. So this is the accurate information that we are now presenting to you. So 120 questions divided into 4 sections. First section, legal aptitude and reasoning of 24 marks. GK section of 32 marks. The logical and analytical reasoning section of 24 marks. And English section of 40 marks. This is a strict division that the MHCET has presented us with. So it's completely reliable, and the paper actually is divided into only these 4 sections. Now, what is the type of content or the syllabus that is asked under the 4 sections that we just discussed? So in the first section, that is the legal aptitude and reasoning, the questions are primarily fact-based, principle-based, and somewhere around general knowledge also. Something around which article of the Constitution deals with impeachment of a Supreme Court judge or a High Court judge. What do we mean by a court of record by Supreme Courts and High Courts? These are the questions that are asked in legal aptitude and reasoning. It will test your legal general knowledge as well as your understanding of applying certain principles to facts. General knowledge, it includes history, geography, general science, economics, and civics, but a more primary focus is on current affairs. So GK is there, static GK. You need to know some bit of history, for example, the Battle of Plassey, the First War of Independence, the Panipat War, or the World War. You need to have at least the basic knowledge of the historical events, some bit of geography, some bit of general knowledge, general science, economics. But what is more important is your knowledge of the current events, the events that have taken place in the last 1 year. That is primarily, maybe you can focus more on June 2025 to March 2026. Now, logical and analytical reasoning, this is the third section that we're dealing with. In this section, questions primarily range from analogies, arguments to logical reasoning, and this includes deductive reasoning based on relationships, for example, blood relations, and syllogisms, puzzles, clocks and calendars. These are the type of questions that are asked, and these are the most important topics: blood relations, syllogisms, conclusion based, relationship based, and clocks and calendar. Coming to the fourth section, that is English, we have questions that range from vocabulary to reading comprehension, proficiency, usage, and errors. This also includes some bits of idioms, some bits of literary devices, but primary focus is on reading comprehension and your vocabulary and how well, what is your proficiency in these 2 subject areas. Now we will discuss some previous year trends that are paper, that is the MHCET 2025. So the paper happened in 3 shifts, so we'll be discussing each of the 3 shifts separately. So shift 1, talking about general knowledge section, most represented in the source material covering geography, international conflicts and national institutions. So the questions primarily in the shift 1 paper came from geography, international conflicts and national institutions. National institutions could be your RBI, your SEBI, your Intelligence Bureau, your ROB. These institutions hold immense importance for your general knowledge, and you need to have understanding of, let's say, who's the current chairman of ISRO, who's the current national security advisor, because these are the questions that can be asked. Talking about logical and analytical reasoning, there were specific logic problems involving clock calendar, cube cutting, number series and word analogies. For example, if doctor is equal to scalpel, what would be a woodcutter be equivalent to? So these are the questions that can be asked in logical and analytical reasoning section. Comprehension or the English language section focus significantly on idioms and phrases. For example, what does burning the midnight oil mean? Or what does rain on my parade mean? Now, the 4th section, that is the legal aptitude and reasoning, it featured scenario based questions on defamation and a specific regulatory question regarding noise pollution rules. अगर आपने CLAT का एग्जाम देखा हो, पुराना CLAT का एग्जाम, that is from CLAT 2018, CLAT 2019 and ALET to an even later extent like ALET 2021, you would know what type of questions are asked. There is a principle given. For example, whoever dishonestly takes away any property would be liable to theft. Now there will be a fact given. For example, X goes to Y's house, he sees a pen lying over there idle and nobody is in possession of the pen, so he takes away that pen. Would X be liable of theft? These are the types of questions asked primarily in the legal aptitude section. When we talk about the general knowledge section in more detail, it directs us to this thing. There was a high recency and awards in international affairs. So MHCET का focus बहुत ज़्यादा रहता है आपके national and international awards में. For example, your Bharat Ratna, your Padma Shri, your Padma Vibhushan. These are the questions that are frequently asked in the paper. For example, in the 2025 paper, there were some questions on 2024 awards. For example, the 2024 Erasmus Prize and the 2024 Nobel Prize in Literature. Now, there's another thing in focus is your global conflicts. For example, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and it requires, and one question that really surprised me was that it required you to have knowledge of the start date of the war, that when did it exactly start. This year also we have a couple of conflicts ongoing. For example, the US, Venezuela, the Thailand, Cambodia, the recent confrontation that happened between US and NATO over Greenland. So these are the conflicts that you can keep in mind. Especially even India-Pakistan confrontation arose in last year. So that is something that you should keep in mind. Some questions on international geography also. For example, recent administrative changes such as the Indonesia shifting its capital from Jakarta to Nusantara. Now, another thing to note, very important, is that the paper is highly Maharashtra centric. You will see questions that pertain to Maharashtra's geography, Maharashtra's infrastructure and Maharashtra's polity. For example, if we talk about geography of Maharashtra, there was a question on highest peak in Maharashtra and major rivers like the Godavari. And secondly, infrastructure also highlighted the Tarapur atomic power station as the first commercial nuclear power plant in India. And lastly, polity also. It specifically addressed the bicameral legislature status of the state. So there are some events that happened this year that are peculiar to the Maharashtra state and can be asked. For example, recently the Maharashtra deputy CM was killed in a plane crash, becomes important for you. New parties are emerging, some led by the Fadnavis family, some by the Pawar family. Important for you to note. Also, we see an emphasis on environmental and social legislation. For example, under environment law, there was a question asked on specific distances regarding the silent zones under the noise pollution rules, and some questions about women's rights under the theme of gender. It included questions like International Women's Day and the function of the National Commission of Women. You can also look up the chairperson of NCW, what their role is, who can be the chairperson of NCW, and what is the eligibility to become a member. And some application-based questions in the legal section are like a factual scenario, A, calling B a thief to test the application of defamation. So you know, if you say something that lowers the reputation of another person in the eyes of another person, you will be held liable for defamation. So there was a question where A called B a thief in front of C, and now you had to assess whether A would be liable for defamation. Spatial logic, again, yes, good level of questions asked under this also. Complex spatial visualization, such as calculating the number of faces painted on a cube after it has been dissected. Common sense questions, you must have done it in your aptitude till your class 10th, and if you are preparing for Olympiads, you must have come across these type of questions. So these are regularly seen in the MHCET paper. Now in the Shift 2 paper, we again saw a heavy feature in the GK section on geography of, especially of Maharashtra, and then on history. For example, the Battle of Panipat was asked, the World War II was asked, and under awards, a question on Ratan Tata because he died last year, and science like the acid rain and Mars, which are very much in use. In the legal reasoning and aptitude section, there were some questions on GK such as the National Legal Services Day. In the same line, you should also know a lot about our constitution. When was it enacted? How many members are part of the Constituent Assembly? Who was the chairperson of the Constituent Assembly? When is the National Constitution Day celebrated? So these are some questions that you should know that are relevant both for your GK section and also for your legal aptitude section. Definition of a bench versus jury trial, section 302 of the IPC and the IT Act. Recently the BNS and the other in criminal laws were also passed, so have some basic understanding of what the new changes have been introduced by the new bills or the acts. There's also a focus on recent and prominent personalities. For example, there was a question on the recipient of the Ratan Tata Award. This was primarily because Ratan Tata had died in that particular year, and historical context, a question on the year he received the Padma Vibhushan. So two questions were linked together. One was about who was the recipient of the Ratan Tata Award, and secondly, and when did Ratan Tata himself receive the Padma Vibhushan. And there was again regional emphasis on Maharashtra. For example, recognition of Marathi saints like Saint Daneshwar and Saint Tukaram. Polity question on Maharashtra, on the number of seats in the Maharashtra Legislative Assembly. So if you analyze the trend from this analysis that we are doing, very much focus on your static part about your history, geography, your polity, your governance, and specifically about Maharashtra. At least know everything about the Maharashtra legislature, the Vidhan Sabha, the state assembly and the state legislatures. Environmental and geographical awareness, some questions on the leader of the Silent Valley movement in Kerala and the causes of acid rain. Again, things that are in news and that you know by common sense. Mentions of the Sardar Sarovar Dam and its location on the Narmada River. Information regarding the habitat of the sagai, the deer. Another question that comes to my mind while presenting this analysis is that recently there have been news that there is a musical road that has been inaugurated in Bombay. So know about that road. Where is it located? Whose idea is it? Where have we taken this inspiration from? Because if I remember correctly, there are other countries that have first inaugurated such roads in the past, and now India has taken inspiration from one such countries. So know more about the recent or the latest happenings of Maharashtra. Otherwise, there was standard general knowledge questions. Legal Services Day was mentioned twice. Awareness of the IT Act and the Flag Code of India. Basic knowledge of the Indian Penal Code regarding murder. There have been certain changes about in the new sections in the new bills. For example, the section on sedition has been removed. So know something about it. What is sedition? Why was it removed? Which section of the IPC dealt with sedition? And now what new clauses or sections have been introduced to deal with seditious cases? Battle of Panipat was asked, as I've already told you, and the start and end dates of World War II were tested. So if you see, these are the types of questions that are not really relevant for your law school. But again, these are asked as part of general knowledge to see how consistent you have been throughout your preparation journey, whether you have done well in your class 10, whether you have done well in your class 12, how well you remember your old stuff. So these are the questions not particularly relevant for your law school, but hold immense importance for your MHCET prep. Talking about the Shift 3 paper, it covered mostly international organizations like the NATO, history of George Washington, the World War II, something about literature as well. Books by Arundhati Roy. This brings me to the part on literature, that literature becomes important for you because there are very renowned poets and authors that come from Maharashtra and who have been doing wonders, publishing books after books and receiving awards after awards. So know about these authors who have recently done well in the past year, published famous books and received important awards. Know about Maharashtrian culture, Kathak, UNESCO sites and regional geography. Know about the official language, official dance, official bird of Maharashtra, because these are important for your MHCET. Under logical reasoning, there were questions on calendar, syllogisms, odd one out, spatial reasoning and word analysis. And in the legal reasoning section, questions such as the International Criminal Code, Indian Flag Code and the origins of Indian parliamentary system was there. So you should know from which jurisdiction has the idea of fundamental rights been copied from where have we taken the idea of DPSP, that is your directive principles of state policy, where have we copied the idea of parliamentary system, what is the difference between parliamentary system and a presidential system. So all of these things you should know because these are very basic stuff. Heavy emphasis on Maharashtra state facts, highest peak in Maharashtra, geographical ranges not found in the state, number of seats in the Maharashtra and the Vidhan Sabha. Again, repetitive stuff that was seen across all the three shifts. So if you are wondering why have we mentioned these things again and again, this is because the similar stuff or questions were asked in all three shifts of the paper. Logical reasoning emphasized on perfect squares, identifying even versus odd squares in geometric volumes, time and relation, recurring use of calendar-based logic and categorical syllogisms. And again, similarly, that what we have discussed before, specific years and circumstances circumstances surrounding the end of World War II. Now, that was our analysis of the previous year papers, but it is important to discuss the expected themes and projections for this year's MHCET 2026 paper. So now, the recurring theme of this analysis is that there is a hyper-regional focus. Unlike NLSAT, which has a more broader international national emphasis, MHCET's primarily focus is on the Maharashtra politics, Maharashtra culture, and Maharashtra governance. So every shift of previous year papers included questions on Maharashtra's geography, the Godavari River, and the specific composition of the Maharashtra Legislative Assembly. I'm not saying these questions will repeat themselves, but similar questions can be asked, like the longest river of Maharashtra, or which of the following peaks are found in Maharashtra, which of the following peak is not found in Maharashtra. These are the questions that can be asked. High recency current affairs. The questions that are asked in the paper from current affairs are those which have happened recently. They will not ask you possibly a 2022 or 2023 event. They will ask you questions from events that have happened in the recent past. For example, the Air India crash that happened in June last year is also a recent one that becomes important for this year paper. Questions on the Nobel Prize. Recently, the 2025 Nobel Prizes have also been announced. So very important for you. The Ratan Tata Awards, the Erasmus Award, the Booker Prize Award, important awards that you need to cover. For logical reasoning, the types of questions that are recurring are blood relations, syllogisms, puzzles, arrangements, and questions on clocks and calendars plus cube. Static general legal knowledge. Of course, you should have some knowledge about the legal static part of GK. The recurring topics are National Legal Services Day, the IT Act, the Flag Code of India, and some emphasis on environmental and social movements also. That brings me to an important aspect that can be important for you is the gig worker debate that is happening, whether there should be a minimum salary for gig workers, the recent happenings that there should be no 10-minute delivery allowed for Zomato and Swiggy. Know everything about that because MHCET does focus on social movements. Projections for this year's paper, we are predicting that there will be questions on international shifts, for example, similar to ones that Indonesia's capital shifted to Nusantara from Jakarta. Know about international conflicts that are taking place, Russia, Ukraine, North Korea, South Korea, US, Venezuela, US, NATO, India, Pakistan, Thailand, Cambodia. These are the disputes that become important for you. Know about the 2025 award winners, the Nobel Prize winners, the Padma Bhushan, the Erasmus, the Padma Vibhushan, Booker Prize. Know about geopolitics, the global conflicts happening, the important organizations like G7, G20, W Health Organization, World Bank, IMF, United Nations. Know about this also. For legal aptitude, it's simple, basic application, the principal fact questions that I told you about. There will be a principle given to you, a set of facts given to you, and then you have to choose from the correct answer. For example, whether A should be held liable or not. Environmental questions regarding silent zones or the Environment Protection Act. Know about this, know about nautical miles, know about Indian Ocean, know about rivers of India, know about cultures of India, important dance forms, important musical forms, and the culture of the Maharashtrian state. Now coming to the projections for the logical and analytical reasoning section, the questions can be asked from cubes and clocks problems, also includes calendar. Analogy pattern, simple functional analogy. For example, to give you an illustration, if hot is equal to oven, what would cold refer to? And that is a refrigerator. These are the analogies that are asked in the paper very frequently. English comprehension, there was a dominance of idioms, like there was a preference of classical English, for example, burning the midnight oil, rain on my parade, and phrases describing work ethic, frustration, or urgency under the vocabulary section. So the recap or the main takeaway from this session is that focus more on Maharashtrian news, focus on culture, history, geography, because these are the questions asked in the paper. Practice a lot of principal fact-based questions. If you go on Google, if you come to NLTI, we do provide you MHCET mocks, MHCET previous year material for you to practice on, but principal fact questions can be found on Google also very easily. So practice those type of questions. For English, practice reading comprehension, practice idioms, practice phrases, and for your GK section, I've already told you history, geography, etc. Logical reasoning and analytical reasoning, focus on blood relations, syllogisms, cubes, clocks and calendars, analogies, and deductive reasoning. So that's it from this session today. I hope you found this useful. I hope you now have at least some clarity on where to begin with, what the pattern of the paper is, what the syllabus of the paper is, and what should be your emphasis on for the next 2 months based on the previous year trends. So that's it from this video. If you want us to make another video specifically on any of the topics of MHCET, let us know in the comment section and we will be more than happy to assist you. Thank you so much for joining in. Hope you found this useful.